Before we call the public hearing to order, we have two members that are online. So Ms. Gaskman, can you confirm that you are unable to be here and alone?
Yes. I'm in this room alone, but there are people in my house, but I'm in my room alone. Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Torres?
Yes, good evening. I am home alone, but unable to attend.
Thank you. So at this time, I would like to call the public hearing to order for the purpose of presenting the SAU 39 proposed budget for fiscal year 2026 to order under RSA 194C:10. And I will turn it over to our business administrator, Amy Casey, for a presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Christy. I'm actually going to turn it over to Superintendent Barry to do the first few slides, and then I'll get into some other descriptions of positions and the financial aspect of the budget.
Thanks, Amy. Appreciate everyone getting here on a rainy night. Appreciate people joining via Zoom. Thanks for going through the process with us. This is draft 3. A lot of this you've heard in this meeting, you've heard it in your individual meetings. But as we know, a couple things to keep in mind. You know, budgets are a reflection of what you value, and we have been building our budgets off of the framework, and people are aware of the 6 goals or the 6 areas of focus: literacy, math, expanding some instructional time, improvement of instructional practices, probably the most important one, getting better at our craft, engaging kids more, challenging kids more. And so our budget is built off of those things, but we focus on the partnerships and improving our facilities as well. Keep in mind, highly regulated, and the process that we go through in SAU 39 and the 3 districts is very cumbersome and lengthy and detailed. And so as we bring into this budget this evening, just really, pleased with it. And as we roll through the slides, just kind of keep in mind, to improve literacy, to improve mathematics, it's complicated, it's lengthy, it looks in different ways, it needs different resources depending on the grade level. But, as you can see, we get into at length the things that we are working on under those goals as we outline our priorities. But as I get to the additional priorities for us, you've heard us talk quite a bit about mentoring school leaders. We have I would say a younger, administrative team at the building levels. Most of our administrators are, with Tom Lecklider being the outlier, are like 3 years and under in their positions. That's very intentional, given the landscape. We want people to stay. We want them to develop. We want to, work with them so they can be in our SAU and our districts for a good bit of time. We have facility, projects going all over the place, in 3 districts, and they're at different levels and they're at different times. That also comes out of the superintendent's office as a partnership between the superintendent, the BA, the assistant superintendent, and the director of facilities, and a lot of people behind the scenes to make that work happen. As people talk about strategic and operational planning, we are, consistently been under that for the last 2 years, and it looks like we're going to be working on that over the next 2. And then we are year after year in negotiations. We're in the middle of Mount Vernon this year, and we will be with the AEA and the ASSA next year. So lots happening. You can see the flow chart for this year, or excuse me, for next year, and a couple subtle changes. The communications coordinator is going to report to the assistant superintendent, and the data person is going to be reporting to the director of curriculum. So a couple little slight changes there as we look at the constant being efficient with our SAU. But with that said, I'll turn it over to Ms. Facey for the meat of it.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. So these next few slides were developed a few years ago when there was some questions about the different departments within the superintendent's office and within SAU 39. So I'm not going to read through all of these slides. I'll just go through them briefly as highlights, but they're really in here for folks to review at their leisure and to be able to have documented what the main areas of focus are within the superintendent's office in SAU 39. So the superintendent's office is really the hub of educational leadership. They provide development, planning, implementation, and evaluation of the entire K-12 education program in SAU 39. Also under the superintendent's office is curriculum and accountability. And this involves instructional programming, district adopted curriculum, and staff development. In addition, as Mike mentioned briefly, that there's data tracking and reporting and communications. So we have been pleased to have a new communications coordinator on board, and she's been very involved in being able to engage with the community on a consistent basis, providing better website management, dealing with school messenger, and really engaging in our community and providing more transparency. Our data tracking and reporting coordinator deals with all of the school district data, federal and state reporting, working on dashboards that I know has been a goal of the boards for quite a while, and looking to measure effectiveness and growth of our students. Human resources, they provide oversight and management of a lot of work with our employees, benefits, compensation, involved in federal and state compliance, labor relations, records, health insurance, negotiations, and all things dealing with human resources. Student services. This department is responsible for all the programs relative to students who receive supports and services under the IDEA, or Individual with Disabilities Act, as well as Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. That department provides training and oversight of all special education and related services. Technology. We have our technology director here tonight helping out. And that department oversees all of our technological services in all the schools throughout all the districts, as well as the SAU. Handles all purchases of hardware, software, training new staff. There's lots of work. They're very busy on a daily basis, dealing with a myriad of issues that come up from staff on an ongoing basis. We've created a multi-year technology plan that we've discussed, always on the looking to improve our ward against cybersecurity. Staff undergoes trainings. We get secret phishing emails that we have to, hopefully everyone does well. It doesn't respond to them. So that's been a great new addition from that department. Business administration, that's the department that I oversee, responsible for all the financial functions across the 3 school districts and the SAU. So that includes budget, costing, contract negotiations, working with Department of Education, Department of Revenue. There's lots of financial reports that have to get pumped out of our office. Our office is responsible for working with the auditors on our annual independent audit process for all of the districts and the SAU. We manage the capital reserve and expendable trust funds, all of the grants, financial projections, risk management, liability, insurance programs. Payroll is done out of this that department, accounts payable and receivable, all purchasing, all requests for proposals, and the financing of building projects. In addition, I also oversee as business administrator facilities. I have a director of facilities who provides the hands-on oversight and management of all of the physical plant operations, including the building, grounds, maintenance, all the custodians, utilities, energy management, safety, security, to provide the best environment for our staff and students. In addition, the business office oversees transportation to provide to and from school for all students, as well as athletics, CTE, and special education transportation and other offsite activities. And finally, food service. So we have a director of facility of food service who provides the oversight and management of all of the district's school nutrition services in accordance with state and federal school nutrition program regulations and guidelines. So, now I will get into the actual finances of the budget. Before I get started, I did want to point out that at the time, we needed to submit the posting notice for this public hearing to the newspaper. We had not received some information from the Department of Education, which is the average daily membership and attendance. So at that time, I used the October 1 enrollment numbers for calculating the apportionment to the school districts. A note in the posting stating that apportionment would be updated once the ADMAs were published was included. So since the posting, we have received the ADMAs and updated the apportionments. So the posting was revised and has been included in your packet, and it is also in the in the budget file. So another note, last year there was a comment that the posting notice didn't really align with how our budget is presented on that form. That form was inherited from prior business administrators. So for this year's notice, I revised the form to align with the budget categories that we used to review and analyze the budget, so that the story of the budget presentation is aligned with the notice. So cost changes from draft 2 to draft 3 are mostly due to two main adjustments. In facilities, the addition of funds for the ADA ramp at the brick school as a building project, and an increase of $1,038 for property and liability insurance. So that added a total $13,538 to the budget. The elimination of the cost for the strategic planning consultant reduced the budget by $15,000. There was also a small increase in unemployment compensation and workers' compensation for a total increase of $298. So the net change from draft 2 to 3 was a decrease of $1,164. So the FY26 budget is a 5.9% increase, or $182,245 over the FY25 adopted budget. So the budget, we can typically divide it into two main categories. Personnel includes salaries and benefits, and non-personnel that include facilities, technology, and operations. Operations are primarily services such as legal, audit, supplies, phone. So for personnel, major driver of the budget is the significant increase in health insurance, ranging from 12.4% to a 16.8% increase depending on the health plan, as well as a 5% increase for dental insurance. So total health and dental insurance added over $100,000 to the budget. The proposed 3% salary and benefit pool as a cost of living adjustment is the same as last year. And there's also the merit pool for $5,000 plus related benefits that was added to the budget last year as well. The merit pool funds do not add to an employee's base salary, but will be for additional workload and exceptional performance. The New Hampshire retirement system rate has been reduced by 0.41% for teachers and 0.78 for non-teachers. This is a new rate and is set for 2 years. For non-personnel, there are some changes in facilities, technology, and operation that I'll go into a bit more in more detail later in the presentation. So economic conditions, as the majority of the SAU budget is salaries and benefits, and there is a proposed wage increase of 3%. View of current economic conditions that are relevant to employment and cost of living indices is provided for information purposes only. So the Employment Cost Index, or ECI, measures the change in the cost of labor. As reported with draft 1, September, the compensation costs increased 3.3%, in the Boston Worcester Providence combined statistical area for the 12-month period ending June 2024. For the September 24 report, the 12-month ECI actually decreased to 1.6%. I'm not an economist and do not work for the Federal Reserve, but I think there are fluctuations that happen, but so it's important to know that while this did decrease, there are fluctuations in this measurement. So I wanted to include both the measurement that I had previously as well as updating it for this presentation. The Consumer Price Index, or CPI, is a measure of the average change over time in the prices paid by consumers for goods and services. The CPI is based on prices of food, clothing, shelter, fuels, transportation, et cetera. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported a 3.3% annual increase in the CPI as of August 2024. And this 3.3% increase remained the same as of the October 2024 report. So history of SAU staffing. So also in terms of wages and benefits, headcount is proposed to remain as status quo from FY 25 to 26. There were significant changes made to the SAU office staffing plan last year that will stay in effect for FY 26. Right, so we now actually have a brick school CNA CIP. So the facilities budget, as stated, has a projected increase primarily due to an increase in the building projects account in order to fund the ADA ramp at the brick school in FY 26. At the last SAU board meeting, the board approved increasing the line item for this project to $20,000 for. It was previously budgeted at $7,000. The proposed brick school CNA CIP funding plan maintains that 20,000 contribution going forward to be able to fund a variety of planned projects. The plan also seeks to maintain a balance of $30,000 in that reserve as a safeguard against large anticipated expenses. This plan will continue to be reviewed with the SAU Brick School Improvements Committee. So the FY 26 proposed budget is broken down by major categories: salaries, benefits, technology, facilities, and operations. The increase in benefits from the current year to FY 26, as stated, is primarily due to the increase in health and dental, as well as a change in staff health insurance elections. Salary increases are due to wage increases and a retirement payout. The proposed 3% salary and benefit pool COLA and 5,000 merit pool is the same as last year. The other budget changes include smaller increases, facilities at 0.6% or 17,020, and that main driver is the ramp, as well as some projected increases for electricity and HVAC. For technology, which is at 2.2%, or $4,865, we project an increase in software costs, but a net decrease in replacement equipment based on need. For operations, we're at a negative 0.4% or negative 10,728 with the removal of the consulting costs for the strategic plan. This category is a net decrease from the current year. We do need to replace the folding machine in the business office. And there that is at end of life, and there's a small increase in the office furniture line. We were also able to eliminate the courier position and have someone in the business office cover this function. This added staff mileage, but there are the net savings to the budget as a result of this change. So this chart is the same dollar amount change information as the previous slide, but shows the percent change from FY 25 to FY 26, as opposed to the percent change at the total of the budget. So this provides an analysis of the changes from year to year. So again, the benefits category is the largest increase at 10.8%, including the health and dental, and the New Hampshire retirement decreases for 3B match, FICA, workers' comp, unemployment comp, PD, tuition reimbursement. Salaries are increasing at 3.7% from year to year. Facilities increased by 23.8%, primarily due to the ramp. Technology by 3.6%, and operations decreased by 9.6%. So this slide isn't a year-to-year comparison, but rather the allocation of each category as a percent of the total budget in a visual pie chart. So as expected, the majority of the costs at the SAU are for salaries and benefits. 58% salaries, 32% benefits, tech 4%, operations 3%, and facilities 3%. And this is a similar ratio compared to last year's budget. So finally to the apportionment. So the SAU budget is incorporated into the 3 school district budget according to an apportionment. The total budget is then offset by revenue that comes from 2 places, the unassigned fund balance and E-rate revenue. So E-rate revenue is generated from discounts received on telecommunications, internet access, and internal connections. And in turn, we're able to offset some of the technology costs in the budget. Fund balance is calculated using the unassigned fund balance 2 years prior, reduced by the revenue that is used to offset the current year SAU apportionment for FY25. And then that balance is used to offset the FY26 budget. The average daily membership and attendance for each district and the equalized valuation for property in the 2 towns are then used to determine the percentages of the total budget to be apportioned to the school districts. Those percentages are 58.55% for Amherst, 10.35% for Mount Vernon, and 31.09% for South. So the FY25 to FY26 apportionment comparison for expenditures and revenues. So as discussed, the amount apportioned to the districts in the expenditure budget less revenues for E-rate and fund. The expenditure increase from FY25 to FY26 is $182,245. On the revenue side, there is $147,821 less revenue available in FY26 than was available in FY25. So the FY25 revenue was over $193,000 as compared to just $45,000 in FY26. So the result of less revenue is an increase in the amount to be allocated to the school districts. So the total amount to be allocated is both the additional expenditures as well as the reduction in revenue. So that total increase is $330,066. So comparing the apportionments to the individual school districts, the net change for Amherst is $189,649. Mount Vernon, it's $35,912, and for Souhegan, it's $104,500. These changes are all driven by the increased amount to be apportioned, changes in ADMA, equalized valuation for the different towns that affect the final result. And just finally, some other considerations. There are some other items that will need to be considered by the board for next year at a later date. As we discussed last month, given the significant increase in health and dental and the impact on the SAU budget, we looked at ways to possibly mitigate the increase in costs. One option brought to the table was to offer a higher incentive for employees to not take health insurance. We did survey SAU staff and there was interest from a number of employees. There are currently only 2 employees who do not take health insurance. So for those who do take health insurance, most are on a family plan. So should for example, a $10,000 buyout be offered, the net savings for an employee not taking family health insurance would be about $25,000. We are also reviewing current plan offerings to see if there are any other options that would potentially save money. We will need to wait for open enrollment in the spring and also receive board approval prior to changing the buyout amount. So that is just on here for information purposes. As the board discussed, also the long-term planning process has been updated by the superintendent. And as discussed, those costs were removed from the budget. nothing to do, just noting that this process has been updated. Finally, the superintendent does plan to continue the conversation with the board around adding consultative support services to the budget, should there be savings realized from a change in the health insurance buy-in. So finally, here is a calendar of events that documents board and community engagement on the budget. We've completed all of these meetings and are at the public. So further, the SAU Budget Committee had their final meeting on November 12th and voted to recommend the SAU budget 4-0. Members of the committee are listed here. And I know that the chair of the committee is here tonight and prepared to address the board. And I would like to thank all of the members for their active participation in the process. Thank you.
You're on.
Thank you. My name's Pete Maresco and do live in Amherst. I'm a member of the Amherst Ways and Means Committee. I wanted to start just by giving people a feel, anybody who might be listening, a feel for what the budget subcommittee did. You know, we first met in September and reviewed draft 1 of the budget. At that point, we really understood the staffing plan, agreed with it, you know, understood everything that was going on. The numbers were preliminary because we were waiting for the healthcare costs. Those numbers did come in. We met again in October, reviewed draft 2 of the budget before it was presented to the board. Again, after the board reviewed it and wanted to go forward with it, we met one more time, asked a few more clarifying questions, and then at that meeting, the subcommittee unanimously agreed to go forward with presenting this to the public. The numbers, I have to admit, when it first came out, I saw the 5.4% on draft 1, and, you know, I was shocked. Then I saw it went up to 5.9%. And I wasn't happy, but I understood it. And looking into the numbers, that explained why the percentage looked out of whack. You can see we had about a 10% increase in the healthcare costs, 3% increase in salary costs, which is in line with all of the other budgets. But when you look at the totals, the salary and healthcare costs make up almost 90% of the SAU budget. So even though the incremental increases of each were in line with everybody else, it just shows up as a higher percentage. So I have to admit, you know, the questions that we asked were all answered very clearly. Everybody understood the budget. Everybody really appreciated the use of the zero-based budgeting approach. We know that makes it the most efficient. So that just explains why, you know, the subcommittee was, you know, is fully in support of the budget. Notice I didn't try to say unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Here, there don't seem to be any members of the public in the room.
Can we wait for events for a moment? You have 30 seconds left. No.
If we need to, but if that's a public comment. Yeah, we have public. Yeah, our public wandered off, so anyone. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I was waiting for you to say if anyone online.
There's 2 people online, but they don't.
They don't want to do it. Okay, so then at this time, thank you for your
Well,
work.
hold on. Oh, George. He's in Menlo.
So when, that, I was just gonna ask you that. So for members, we're gonna have our discussion when it's time to vote. So
Yeah.
George, are you good to hold your question until the members are deliberating a little bit later?
Absolutely.
Right, thank you so much. I didn't know if it was a question for Pete and how long Pete wants to stay tonight. Okay, so at this time, we will close the public hearing.
Hold on. Howard put his hand up.
Oh,
recently.
Howard, you just made it. I almost closed it.
Thank you. And it's really not for public, it's for the actual budget committee itself. I wanted to say this the other night during the Sahegan budget committee. I think we're to the point right now where we're looking at, budgets that go up, significantly every year, 2 to 3%. But there's not a lot of ways that we can trim it back down. So now you have to start looking at things that, what can we trim? And years ago, when I was on the school board, I brought up the idea about the telephone policy. Who all has telephones in the SAU and in like Sahegan? Right now, we're spending over $5,000 on Sahegan. I'm not sure what the number is for the SAU. You go back to when that policy actually came into play. It was when people didn't have cell phones like they do today. Now everybody has a cell phone, and like mine is like unlimited. So anybody that wants to call me can call me, and I don't need the $660 policy reimbursement for that policy. So I think that's one thing that we need to look at, or Mike needs to look at in the future, to try to bring down that cost a little bit more than what it is right now. And that's all I had.
All right, then, seeing no other members of the public, we will go ahead and close our hearing on the SAU budget and move into public comment for tonight's meeting. If you're present in person and you'd like to address the board, you can move to the table in the center of the room, state your name and town of residence, and have 3 minutes. And also, if there's anyone online, you can raise your hand and we will promote you to ask your question. I can do the rest of the script, but I'm kind of waiting to see if anyone raises their hand.
I can be the pain in the neck and ask my usual question.
You're welcome to ask a question. Just please come state your name and your details. You have 3 minutes.
And my name is Pete Maresco from Amherst, and now I was on the school board for about 7 years, and this is, a question that I asked Mike in private, but I just want everybody to think about it. My big thing was math. I always loved math, and I always wanted to see, the kids do well in math. When I retired, I tried to become a math teacher, but nobody wants to hire any old men at this point, but that's a different story. But the question I have, I always see improving skills in math coming up as the goal. When I was on the board, when I saw the new math methods that were coming in, the new ways of teaching math, I was always a bit confused by it, because to me, it looked like they were teaching ways to get answers, not ways to fully understand the concepts. It was much different than when I learned. And it got to the point where, after I retired, I had some free time, so I tried to help out at the after-school study at Sauhegan. I was trying to help freshmen solve quadratic equation problems, which I can solve in about 3 seconds, any quadratic equation. But I could not explain to any of them the method that they use to solve them now. There's this convoluted way. And my fear is that just by memorizing ways to get answers, they're missing the whole concept. So growing from, the basic algebra on to the next is going to be more difficult. That's just my observation. I just didn't know if anybody else was thinking about that, and anything we can do about that.
Yeah, thank you for your comment, and we'll keep an eye on that as we go through the long-term planning process. Anyone online? Okay. So at this time, we'll close the first public comment, and there'll be another opportunity for the public to address the board later in the evening. And we will move into board vote on the budget. Is that correct? Just says board vote. I assume it's budget. So I think at this time, if any board members have questions or comments, things you want to share, we'll start with George.
Thank you. Nice job on the presentation, Amy. My only question really pertained to the slide that presented the compensation index. I was just curious to see the demographics that was used on the compensation side because it looked a little bit lower than what I've seen. Although when you did present the salary slide, the percentage increase, that was more in line to what I've been seeing. So there was a little bit of discrepancy there. So I was just curious to see what the demographics were. Otherwise, the budget, although not completely happy about it, but it is what it is, and it makes sense.
Yeah, when I wanted to update it because I presented it using June 2024 ECI that was 3.3%, which was what I probably would have expected. And then September 2024, it's Boston, Worcester, Providence. I have no idea why it's 1.6%. All of the other areas around the country were in the 3% range. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to dig into it, but I'm curious as well. I don't know. I did look at a prior year and it looked like it had gone down, then back up again. So it's probably just a variable that changes as we go forward. But I did want to update it just, for consistency. So I don't know.
No, I appreciate it. You can look at 4 different indexes and get 4 different results. I was just curious if that was just specific to this industry, or if that was across different professions or different industries, because some of them can focus on different areas, even though they're within the same region. So just curious.
Yeah. This was just the general, so I didn't dive deep into.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So,
I have two. What is the insurance opt-out that we're paying now?
For SAU, I believe either 1,000 or 12. Your next question.
Question was, what was the driver of the cause of the reduced revenue? What,
That was our fund balance.
just the fund balance on the
Yeah.
slide, so.
Yeah.
But I guess follow up to the 1,200, close enough figure is there a, we'll call it an industry standard,
It's
but
a
is
value.
it? I
Yeah.
mean, is there a number that other districts or other industries use as kind of that the tipping point that we get to?
Yeah, so, after draft 1 and I saw people's reactions to draft 1, 5.4, and then, Amy and I met and like, not much we can do. It is what it is. And so I took a poll of other superintendents in the South Central area, surrounding districts that we're part of, and it ranges, from, us to, a lot of people around 4 or 5. A lot of people, a good chunk around 7,500, 8. And there's a few that are 10 to 12. And it's just about trying to figure out what works for you as you opt out of those packages. And when I looked at what the savings could be, looked at, we took a survey in the office and had a handful of people who would consider it over the winter before open enrollment, gave us to kind of pursue it. Because I do think it helps the SAU budget in the long run. You can get that type of savings for all. So it's something that we're considering.
Ms. Grant?
Just regarding the ADA grant. Has anyone had a chance, or is it something we should look into if there's any grants out there or any organizations that would help offset? Some of us, I'm sure, can get involved, so it's not all on you.
Well, we do have the Brick School Improvement Committee, so I think that would be a natural fit for that group to brainstorm that idea. And we will try to meet quarterly, so we haven't met in a little bit, so. I think that's a great idea. I have no idea, but
Yeah, no, I just,
certainly
I've thrown it out there.
always
for-
worth looking at it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other board members?
Amy,
Yeah.
good job with presentation.
Yeah.
Is the apportionment, just calculated by the enrollment on this presentation or the whole number?
No, they're not,
So the apportionment's supposed to be like a fraction of Amherst school board students for all SAU 39 students?
So the apportionment is calculated using the average daily membership and attendance for each school district, as well as an equalized valuation number for the towns, and it's actually the average of those two percentages.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
That's why it's a little bit different than that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, yeah, it's
Thank you.
typically around 58% or so for Amherst. It's around 10 for Mount Vernon. It's around 31, 32 for Beacon. So
It wasn't much different from what the
It-
apportionment numbers would have been straight, but it's a little different.
it is.
So thanks.
If you're curious on the, in the budget file under apportionment, I have the full calculation
Oh, good.
in there. So,
Thank you.
yep, yeah, I know. Some people really like. I do.
And keep them doing,
Yeah.
Anyone else? All right, thank you again, Ms. Casey, for all of the work in getting this ready for us, and to the committee as well. At this time, we will go ahead and I'll accept a motion to approve the budget for FY 26 made by Ms. Bean and seconded by Ms. Bruns. So we'll start with a roll call. We'll do a roll call, starting with our online friends. Ms. Gascoigne,
Gascoigne, yes.
Mr. Torres,
Torres, yes.
and then Mr. Glover, big forum.
Whoever, yes.
Amber, yeah. Eckhoff, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Run, yes.
Peters, yes.
Copier, yes.
White, yes.
Fritz, yes.
All right, so the budget is approved and thank you, everyone. We're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is our consent agenda. Only one thing on it, and that is the draft minutes from our last meeting. Any questions, comments, and concerns regarding those? Mr. Glover?
Is there a way to retain the line numbers we had previously? I don't have any changes. I just noticed that they were gone, and that could make it very difficult in referring to minutes should they need to be referred to in the future.
I'll ask Chelsea if she's the person most familiar with this program, and Danae, I know it came up in a very early conversation, and we just kind of moved on from it because we're, comfortable with this, but we can look to see if it's an option, and I'll get back to you.
Thanks.
Anything else regarding the minutes? Someone like to make a motion to approve them? Okay, Mr. White motions to approve the minutes and a second, Anna, Laserman. Any discussion on minutes? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote again, starting with Ms. Gascoigne.
Gascoigne, yes.
Torres, yes.
Mr. Glover?
Glover, yes.
Amber, yeah. Eckhoff, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Run, yes.
Peters, yes.
Copier, yes.
White, yes.
Fritz, yes.
Okay, we received a treasurer's report and some enrollment data. Seeing no hands, we'll move on to our board chair updates, beginning with Mr. Eckhoff.
Thank you. We had a fairly light agenda at our last meeting. We approved 3 co-curricular activities. One is called Project Paint, where kids who sign up will work with school counselor, guidance counselor, Anna Gerard. And they're actually gonna repaint at least one bathroom using a theme that they work with Mr. Ard on, so that's the scope of the painting project. The second one was designing for 3D, which is an art-based program. And then the third one is the STEAM Club, which is a lot of problem solving and brainstorming and building prototypes and implementation. So all three were unanimously approved by the board. We have found that the participation for all these that are usually brought to us are very high and quite popular. So it's an easy yes most of the time because the cost is fairly minimal. We had a facilities update, not in person from Mr. Preston. We are going to have Roger in to present live to us in an upcoming meeting. We're trying to rotate between Roger and that meeting. We had Kristen from the middle school and Mr. Lecklider on every third meeting so that people can get a break from being at all these meetings. So our plan is to work with Roger and also Ms. Facey on using the report that we received from the Harriman firm in regards to the 7th and 8th grade building project. They came in with a fairly extensive list of items in our school that they feel are, I won't say at risk, but end of life was a common comment used on a lot of the parts of the school. So we want to mind meld what Roger has planned and Amy has planned and what we already have on our docket with the information that we received from Harriman, because it is good information. And then from that, we'll build out a revised project list that we use to keep our school in good shape. So we did have a very, very nice and excellent report from Kristen Goff here about the middle school. We just requested from Mike and team that she would visit us like once, maybe twice, once in the fall, once in the spring, update us on the Mount Vernon kids that participate. The report included details on flight school, all the transition meetings. They also trends and feedback from both the students and the parents. A very detailed report. It was really good, very upbeat and positive about changes they've made and the team effort that's been put in place there. So we're very, very pleased with that. And also the sixth graders will continue to be engaged and be invited to AMS activities, such as, social events like dances and also athletics as space permits. So another plus for our students that are still staying at Mount Vernon. We received our second draft of the 2026 budget from Ms. Facey. Kind of the last piece of the puzzle will be the new teachers contract. Budget committees are meeting with Ms. Facey, different aspects of the budget. So we're getting there. In regards to the teachers contract, we had another meeting. Help me out, Michael, was it Monday? Monday. And it went well. And we're scheduled to meet this coming Monday. I believe it's at 4:30 at the school. So we're feeling optimistic and positive with the negotiations. The ink hasn't dried yet though, but hopefully we'll have a decision by Monday. And our next board meeting will be Thursday, December 12th at 5:30. Thank you.
Mr. Guthier.
Okay, so we had our last meeting this week on Monday, the 18th, put back from last Thursday. Draft 2 of our budget came down. It has been whittled down to 3.6%, which is a decrease of about 84,000 from the initial budget draft with 3.9% increase we saw back in October. Major budget drivers, much like we saw with the SAU budget, continue to be wages and benefits. About 1.2 million in wages and benefits increases across the board, and about 55,000 is the net of all other expense changes. So a drastically large proportion of that is the wages and benefits. Our next meeting, we'll be voting on all the warrant articles, which will include our school project, and it will also include the budget. And then we're actually looking at a secondary contribution to our facilities trust fund that would go beyond the unassigned fund balance. This would be a $400,000 contribution, which would help us fund the roof project that is ongoing with some of those capital reserve funds already in place and already planned through fund balance. But this would be an additional contribution out of taxation so that we can maintain progress on the roof project at AMS. We did delegate Terry Beam. She asked some information about it, so she got assigned a task. So ask, careful what you wish for. She will
Okay.
open up a committee across the SAU ideally to talk about makerspace. There have been discussions about this here and there with different various parties about moving the makerspace from AMS to Sauhegan. So Terry will lead the efforts of that and involve all the appropriate parties across SAU 39 that need to be involved in that. Potentially, and then including makerspace leadership as well in that. We accepted 4 retirements, Stephen Obrey and Clark Wilkins, assistant principal, and apparel for this year in 2025. And then Betsy Kellendorfer and Mary Ireland will be retiring in spring of 2026. And then lastly, in the schools themselves, they had, amongst other things, Glow Dance for AMS last month, or earlier this month. They had Veterans Day assemblies in all the schools. Parent-teacher conferences took place this month. And then AMS is now home to the Division I Girls Championship Soccer Field Hockey Team. And they're also home to the Division II runner-up girls soccer team.
And girls.
Thank you. And Ms. Brown?
So we had a meeting, our last meeting was October 30th, but we did have a workshop with our Sauhegan Finance Committee and where we discussed the budget. We currently have a 3.3% increase, and during the discussion with the Sauhegan Finance Committee, we're still working on a few areas, so there might still be some changes that we'll discuss in December. As most people have seen, health and dental, some of our biggest budget drivers, you know, we've talked about it multiple times. We're also still continuing to talk about our science lab renovation. We're not planning on putting anything on a warrant article this year. We still have work to do. We're trying to figure out the right space that we want to renovate. The other thing we did discuss was adding candidate statements to the voter's guide. It's something that, knowing that, the AAUW, I saw on their website that they are disbanding. So it looks like they will not be having their usual presentation, which was always great. And not having a newspaper, and we just thought maybe this is one way we can do, and we're trying to figure out what it might look like, whether it's just a half page, whole page. We haven't discussed it yet, but it's something that we, you know, there might encourage other districts to consider as well. Couple of things going on. Community Council is going to have a meeting December 2nd up in Mount Vernon. It's something that was asked about, and so they are going to hold their evening meeting up in Mount Vernon. So you can look forward to that, which is great. We did have, we just found out that our school made it one of the 14 spots available in the Grand State Challenge out of 35 spots. So yay, congratulations. And I believe Nick Drinkwater was the coach on that. So thank you. And we look forward to seeing them on TV. Our football team made it to state championships. That is this weekend at Pelham. So go Sabres. That'll be exciting. It's playing Pelham. At Pinkerton. At Pinkerton, right, yeah, 1 o'clock. They're playing Pelham, yeah, I think. Yep. And we have Jazz Night here December 5th, which is our school board meeting, so if anyone wants to go, it's always a great night. And that's what I have. Thank you. So we're trying to get the school board meeting done, so we go to Jazz. We're gonna do what we can. It's up to all of you. Always following Jazz Night, and I love Jazz Night. Jazz Night is fantastic. School meeting starts at 4. Yeah, seriously.
Ms. Bean?
So I noticed we don't have, SAU committees on here, and I just wondered if you'd like an update from RSEC and wellness.
I think that'd be fine.
Yeah, I thought we were not doing. I thought we were doing them at the individual board meetings. That's why they weren't on here. But if you want to update us,
Well, I mean, but they're SAU wide.
And so we talked about that in our meeting on Monday, just from our side being SAU
Sure.
wide, so.
that's fine. And I'll put it on the agenda.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Forward, that's fine.
Because it can go either way,
Yeah.
but
So
I think appropriate.
I just like to be prepared.
Yeah, I'm
and
sorry.
so, like, we didn't do it yet this year, and now we're doing it, and I will put it on agendas moving forward. All right, so.
Oh, okay,
Feel free.
it's just real quick.
Yeah.
So RSEC was this morning, I was back up to Stephanie, and since she, won a place in our state house, she has stepped back from that responsibility and asked me to step forward, which I'm happy to do. And so I attended my first meeting this morning, and, they're going over budget for the year, and things are good overall. They're in good financial standing, and one thing that, I think bears note is that we're asking for us to look at the relationship between member districts where we give time and resources to being on their board and giving them supports to see what we get in return. We get a discount on any student that we send to one of their full-time programs. But we're also asking to enshrine officially that our teachers will get first pick at the beginning of the sunrise for their kids. And they jump to the top of any waiting list and possibly get a discount. And so we have an informal commitment with them, but we want to make it more formal so that when we try to hire younger teachers, that we can give that as a benefit that, hey, you can't be totally focused on students if you're worried about your own kids. So here's a good place that you can have your kids with good quality daycare and programs. So we are asking for that, and we're hoping that we get the commitment to at least have them get first priority and then possibly get a discount in next year's budget. So, and then wellness, Mr. Glover also attends with me. If you want to give that update, sir,
Sure.
to surprise you.
Yeah,
Totally.
it's okay. I first told that at a great meeting. It was kind of a brainstorm meeting. There's a couple of different ideas floating around. One is a wellness fair we had at some point. Vendors, various ilks, in attendance to try to give information to the community at large about wellness opportunities in the community. So could be dance studios or martial arts studios, could be some of the vendors, or financial advice people. That's a wellness topic. There was a survey among teachers and staff, and we had some survey results that showed some different areas of interest among that stakeholder group. There was some discussion of doing some things more locally in the schools themselves to make an impact on students and faculty and staff, as opposed to just the community writ large. So it's like, okay, how much can we bite off? What's reasonable to do with a limited number of people without a lot of money to actually try to make an impact to a large enough group as you possibly can reach. So we're still noodling and it's in the brainstorm stage.
Oh, and right near the end, we decided that we might do some short videos. That we give like ideas for some different healthy, like when everybody's starting to scratch their heads on what to send for lunch, you know, Crystal agreed to do like lunch ideas or snack ideas and healthy things, just little bite-sized things to help remind people about wellness topics that they have expressed an interest.
The next thing on our agenda is policy, and I think Shannon is going to give us an overview. Jess wasn't able to be here tonight.
Sure. Great. Thanks. Before I get started, I just would like to recognize and acknowledge Chelsea Borden in the SAU office she's done an enormous amount of work for the policy committee, helping us stay organized. For anyone who's served on policy, you know it's a big lift. We have hundreds of policies across the districts. And keeping up with them and keeping them organized is a full-time job in and of itself. So Chelsea's really just jumped in, taken the bull by the horns, and we're so grateful for her work on the policy committee. As you see in Assembly, she has helped put together the policy packet for us this month. So this month we have 6 policies that the committee is moving forward to this body to discuss and present and as a first reading. So I'm happy to, if you have any questions beyond what has already been provided in the policy packet, I'm happy to try to answer those. May also ask for the help of some fellow policy committee members if it's something that I don't feel fully versed on. But you see here that there are 6, and of the 6, 4 of them apply to the SAU and all of the school districts.
So this is our first read here on these, and they'll be referred to boards as appropriate.
Correct. Yeah. So I think what we're looking to do tonight is have a motion to accept the policies as presented as a first reading so that we can move the necessary policies to the individual boards. And then any policies that also impact us here as an SAU policy we would discuss at our next meeting. Tonight would be the first read. And I'm not in the room, so if anybody's like raising their hand or nodding, I can't see you. You're very tiny on my screen
Yes,
now.
Mr. Bayou's making your motion and Mr. Gothier is seconding it.
Oh, great.
So
Thank you.
any discussion on the motion?
I have a naive question on required ones, like, what does that mean, the required? We have no
So-
option to change them or
Yes.
not, so it's just, by voting yes, just like fulfilling our obligation to uphold New Hampshire law.
Yeah.
That's easy.
I would say sometimes
Sort
there's
of.
language.
Yeah,
Policy committee looks at the language and like if it says superintendent, they might tweak it to say superintendent or designee as long as it's confirmed that that's okay.
We
You know,
can't change the.
but substantively, the substantive, there has to be some policy and the school board association gives us at least what the required language is.
Sometimes there are places where we customize
Right.
exactly.
situation, but overall it's required to have that.
And usually the more complicated, the more careful we are about whether or not we customize it. You can't take like a Title IX one and just be like, oh, let's just change that, because every single part usually
Yeah.
comes from some federal requirement.
Good, thanks.
Specific question about the policy?
I think so.
The JKAA, use of restraints and seclusion. Who, is there anyone designated to ensure this policy is being followed? Because I look at like the training required, you know, under RSA 126, each school, and then it goes on each school building, now staff appropriately trained. Do we have somebody designated to make sure that we're actually, make sure we have people designated who are trained and we're able to follow it?
Yes. Director of Student Service, Dr. Jennings, she's oversees that.
Okay,
She came to policy and spoke to.
okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, it looks like discussion has waned. So go ahead and call the vote, beginning with Ms. Gascoigne.
Gascoigne, yes.
Torres, yes.
Yes.
Remember, yeah. Petkoff, yes?
Dean, yes?
Dave, yes.
Yes.
What is there, yes?
Peters, yes?
Gothier, yes?
Yeah.
All right, and so now just moving into, we had said that we would keep a running agenda item on the long-term planning work that's being done SAU wide here. So we'll have sort of a discussion here and then you can take that back to your boards, maybe for further discussion if that, if you have a more specific comments you want to make about that, but just quickly, obviously during budget season, we kept it just a little bit light and Superintendent Barry did some work with some existing stakeholders that I will let him speak to. Then the committee of Mr. Amber, Ms. Zimmerman, Mr. Fritz and myself met and talked about, talked through that work and also some next steps as well as things we thought were critical areas to identify that we really thought shouldn't be missed. I will let Mr. Barry kind of give the update on that, and then if we have more discussion about that.
No, appreciate it. So since the last time this board met, some work was put into kind of evolving the framework. And I just want to take a moment. There's some board notes in there for everyone to talk a little bit about the logistics and the meetings that we had and kind of next steps. But for me, you know, once the decision was made to not go through the strategic planning process during the 25-26 school year, my mind went to, you know, there's still a real sense of urgency to improve the academic achievement and the educational experience for our students. And so as we're kind of working within this framework, as we're setting it up to do the strategic planning down the road, I really kind of look at this as like operational planning and short-term planning. That we want to look at our day-to-day activities and our tasks and kind of focus on how to move quickly, how to move nimbly, how to make sure that we are, you know, really focusing on the student experience right now, why we are planning for the future. I think the things that we're talking about in the framework right now with math and literacy, I think you'll be really pleased when you get to the updated version of some of the things that have been, included. As we look at instructional time, and I've been on the circuit a little bit around the school districts with the different staffs and in all buildings. And we talk a lot about instructional time is not so much snow days. It's not just making up snow days. It is entry tickets, it's exit tickets, instructional strategies to tell you what practice you put in your classroom. It's how many movies you show. It's what activities you have, how many assemblies do we have, how many field trips do we have, how much absenteeism do we have, how much teacher absenteeism do we have. So for me, it's really about maximizing the school day in the calendar. And then we look into the most important one, goal 4 for us, and as we look to evolve that and make that more robust, most important thing is the teachers knowing the kids in their orbit, really planning high, like quality lessons that focus on, engaging and challenging and supporting students. And obviously building trust and partnerships. I feel like that's just a slow burn. That's going to be something, the more you work together and the more you partner and the better work you do, the partnerships start to become more, of high quality. But I think the work as we're looking at this is we're looking to improve performance. We're looking to provide direction. It helps with our decision-making. It helps us anticipate some challenges, and it enhances how we're going to use our resources. And through the budget process, people say, hey, there's a checks and balance system to our budget process here. I think if you have good people internally presenting the first budgets, it makes the checks and balances process a lot easier. And for me, we want to use what, not limited resources, but what resources we have. As Tom referenced, there's a $55,000 increase of a substantial budget in Amherst. And so we are really maximizing what we can, but we are putting our efforts into this. I said at the beginning, I think the budget reflects what you value. But while we're planning for this year and next year and down the road, we want to make sure that whatever strategic plan comes into place, that it is learner centered and it is outcome centered. And so that's what I feel, and I hope that we have some influence over that. But as you get into a great conversation on November 4th, we attached as we reflected on what we're doing with the framework and how it is being aligned to in the buildings and how it lives and breathes in the buildings. You can see from each school what they're doing to align themselves to the framework. For me, as a superintendent, that's all you can ask is for your building administrators to row in the same direction as that you're rowing in. So really pleased with that meeting. Had a great conversation with, Greg and Leaf and Anna and Christy, about what we're doing. And that's a little muddy, but they're advisory. They are getting a chance to weigh in. They had an answer to what critical areas would you like to see addressed in the next evolution? But we had a good meeting. And then as we kind of continue to evolve this, we're going to take this to other stakeholder groups. We're looking to have some parents come in and review it with us. We're looking to get it out to boards in December, taking it to teachers and staff. I'm meeting with students at AMS, 7th and 8th graders and 9th through 12th graders at different schools, purchasing pizza through our cafeteria. So, making it worth their while and to come work with us. And we're just going to keep evolving this. So that's the update for me. I'll take any questions on the process. But you can see some key areas that we're looking into is expanding the partnerships. We're looking to create overall buckets so we don't just have a list of 8 or 9 goals. We're looking to look at the transitions and the efficiencies of our operations. So it's exciting work. It's time consuming work. It's almost on the daily that we find time to work on this. So excited about what we can produce as we're moving towards that longer term plan.
And can you give an example? You gave us a bunch of examples of potential buckets, just so that everybody knows what you mean by bucket.
Yeah, so I think, for me, right now they're very drafty, right? Very drafty. The first bucket would be learning and everything that goes into learning. The second bucket would be personnel and all that goes into personnel. And the third bucket right now, and these are just very early, would be, community-based partnerships, and what that looks like. And we feel like the framework fits into those overarching buckets because we want the visual to be really consumable. I talked to Katie Gary about what we can present so people can understand it, because they're not going to read long strategic plans, but they want to know what you're doing and what you stand for. And we feel like getting it down into buckets and then having a very consumable, appealing visual will help us with that. So we have some thoughts on that.
Did y'all get a chance, or did you notice that there is a framework for progress reflection attached to this particular agenda item? So it might be good to look over that and see some of the things and see if you spot something that you might add to the conversation, or if there's a, critical thought that we haven't come across yet that you want to share in your board meetings or with your committee member. And Mr. Chris has been waiting patiently.
So I just want to echo what Mike said. So I know Mike said that long-term committee is looking on short-term stuff, but I think that we're including some short-term topics to identify what areas we want to sort of mature and target for the long-term, right? So it's not, we're not really just doing tactical, we are doing strategic, long-term.
We're setting it up.
So I just wanted to reframe maybe the way it
Yeah,
across, at least to me, and then, like I mentioned at our school board meeting, that the committee's working a little different than I thought it was gonna work, so, like last time what happened is Mike kind of asked us for topics that might go into these buckets, might be a new bucket altogether. And then that kind of helps drive his work and our things. So if anybody from really any board has any topics that they'd like to see in long-term planning, I think reach out any one of us and we'll represent that,
Yeah, and I'll add, it will be a standing topic throughout the year, but also there'll be, something provided to each board chair and say, hey, here's this, set up a way, whether they do it individually or we take time during a board meeting to read and reflect and contribute ideas and thoughts. For us, this is just extending the framework, through FY 26, and then we get into FY 27, and then we'll start the more, hopefully, depending on the budget climate, right? We'll start a strategic planning process. So there'll be plenty of opportunities for collaboration.
So be thinking and expect to see that coming up on your individual board agendas. And that will move us right into the superintendent's report.
Thank you. So you have the report. There's a few things that are in the report that are kind of attached to kind of help to it. So I'll open up the report first and just review that with you. Our documents right now. All right, so we're going through the budget process and we spoke to it today. Amy's done a really great job with that. I appreciate everyone who's been part of it. Transportation, it's still an ongoing fight. It's a battle every day. Don't start my day, but my first text or phone call is from Deb at 6:15 in the morning to get an update on the buses and the Slack messages and monitoring it. And I need to let people know here that Deb Dakota at Butler's is really a hard worker, just a really hard worker, doing the very best that she can as the dispatcher. I think when we have a need, she really pays attention to it. So they're doing their very best but we have honest conversations. It's still not good enough. It's still not fulfilling the contract, but we're doing the best we can. We met with Butler's 3 weeks ago and we have a phone call tomorrow with them to see some of the updates from them. And we're hoping for some substantial news. So we will see that. There's a meeting on December 10th. Myself, the Milford superintendent, and the Wilton superintendent are meeting collectively with Butler's and their general manager, their owner, and the dispatcher. Because we all have the same concerns, just in different areas. Some could be co-curricular, some could be special ed transportation, some could be door to school transportation. So we are meeting there. So that's the update there. I'd like to update you on the assistant superintendent search. I can tell you right now, I've had at length conversation with the Superintendent's Association, some colleagues at South Central Superintendent, about 25 people. People are not nearly as interested in joining central office as they were 4 or 5 years ago. And so with that, I need to slow this process down. And so what you're gonna see me is change the timeline. We're gonna open it up with a date of closing in January. I gotta look at one of the Fridays in January. We're gonna get through the holidays. We're gonna let people turn the page from their budget process, their buildings in November, get through the holidays, and then we'll see what it likes. In the meantime, you know, I'm networking pretty decently at that, and I'm very optimistic, but just to do it right and do it the right justice, like I want to wait. I don't want to hurry, and so it is what it is, and we're not the only ones. But I will also just say this: when I talk to the Superintendent Association, like Mike, that is a tough town. That is a tough SAU to be the way it's structured. There's other central office jobs, assistant superintendents that might make more a little appealing just because of the workload. You know, 3 boards, 17 board members, very different districts. It's just what it is, right? The BA is not gonna be any different. BA is not gonna be any different when that happens. So that's the update there. You see the outline of this. I'm really happy. This was Chelsea's idea with the goals and to start to funnel in the updates. And so I think we're good there. Another thing, and then I'll open it up to questions, is 2 memos I want to kind of put your attention to. I'm part of a small group of superintendents, Pelham, Salem, myself, and Timberlane, that have requested a meeting with the CEO of Health Trust. And we're gonna go have a sit down face to face in his office and figure out what's happening. All right. We're not the only ones, but we've been pretty egregiously affected. And I know it's claims. They keep telling us it's claims. And so, I just want to learn more. And so we sent that, and that's happening. That's December 16th. Probably bring Steve with me. He's a hawk on this, and he's weirdly knowledgeable on this. And so that, and then I might need, an escort to the car after this meeting. I sent out a memo. Slack will not be something we will be using after the conclusion of this year. We're gonna use Google Chat. It is part of our Google platform. Brian was heavily involved in that conversation. And for me, as indicated, 2 reasons: cost. And if we want to be compliant with RSA 91A and have permanent storage of our information, we'd have to upgrade. I'm not overly interested in paying for something that we can get for free. And I also, people have heard me, it's a distraction. It's an absolute distraction. It's like having a text message on your computer. And Google Chat, that will be the same, but we can have some different trainings and practices for us. So that went out as well. And that's in the name of instructional time for us and, dialing people in. So that's what I have for an update. I'll take any questions for tonight. Making really good time.
Can I say one
Tell
more
people.
Thank you for taking the initiative to sit down with Health Trust. Really appreciate that. We don't know if anything will come of it. We don't have a conversation.
Yeah, I'm not overly confident that things will come of it based on some other superintendents who I'm partnering with, and they're a little more experienced, a little wiser in there. But you gotta be there. And last year we were very lucky. They came to us. They had people come to us, but we're kind of just moving it up a layer and going up the next. See what happens. So appreciate it, Perry.
So for the record, the amount that we're seeing compared to, say, what our sex offer their 50-some employees, huge difference, huge. And I was like, how can it be like kind of 5% of range compared to our 15? How could our usage be so much greater?
If it's claims, then I believe it. You know what I mean? If it's driven off of claims, based on our staff throughout SAU 39, throughout, and if you sat at Sauhegan, we were double-digit retirements for 3, 4 years in a row almost, right? Amherst is very similar. I remember looking around the room after my first year as superintendent, there's still 25 people. Amy, is that the number? 25 people between the years 22 and 29 at Sauhegan? So they're there, they're experienced, they're, at that age of life where a lot of, more procedures happen, more claims happen, and I think that's just the reality of it.
But they say they're clustered. They're clustered with others that are 100 employees and below. And so, I mean, why can't we be clustered with ones who are higher? Is it literally just our own? Because the whole point of insurance is that you're in a broader pool.
Yeah.
And the whole reason we use them as fellow schools is that you're in a broader pool. This, then if they're gonna be so specific to our specific pool, then what the hell are we getting from the broader?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. I don't know what RSEC is clustered with or what they use.
Oh, I'm just saying, thank you for pushing back, and I think it's worth pushing back, and it may even be worth going private if we had to. Because it's not sustainable year over year.
No, and that's the focus of it. The focus of my conversation is not, as you saw the letter, it's making it sustainable moving forward.
Yeah,
So,
so thank you for trying to fight the good fight.
Quick question about
Yep.
the misbehaving children on the buses, that there's creating the need for additional bus monitors.
yes, I forgot
Is there a
that.
particular grade, like age group that we're talking about and?
Yeah, so I would say,
Lay down the hammer and kick them off the bus if they don't.
no, we couldn't do that.
Cool.
But there are 3 routes. There are 3 routes where we probably have to teach some students how to, ride the bus. And the behaviors on the bus. And what it's like to be kind and to the bus driver and your peers. And so it's not a blanket across all 13 routes. There are 2 or 3 routes we are considering this for. And this is coming, being paid for, via, the butlers and the savings that we have because we're not running, but it's necessary. And if you've been following along, without saying too much, I can tell you it's absolutely necessary. And
What grades is it primarily?
we're gonna do both runs. It's
I mean,
gonna,
is the problem like high schoolers? Is the problem kindergartner?
I would say elementary and middle school would be
Okay.
the areas of focus.
Okay.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I just
Good
thought,
question.
lay down the hammer
So,
with these
and
kids.
I'll tell you how much important it is to me, I'm interviewing. I don't interview paras, I don't usually interview administrative assistants, I'm interviewing the bus monitors. And it's gonna be a critical role, short term.
We should start.
If you, like, go to the
We're gonna
VA,
build
just find
those
some,
for our kids, create a need.
retired veterans that want to, get some extra work.
That's the model.
I'd like to nominate Anna to be bus dictator.
Start charging, setting home bills with the kids who don't behave on the bus.
15-minute, so I spent what how often charge? 6 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind, I would send my nomination for him.
0.1, sorry. Sending you a bill.
Yes, John, and then Pete.
Just, I appreciate the opportunity to provide feedback in the strategic process. Really get into that, something in your superintendent's report triggered something for me for that process. And then, so the question is, for your improving math, the first bullet, talking about students using bridges as math. Learning tool in K through 5, is that both, is that K through 5 both in Mount Vernon using bridges and at, Park Wilkins?
Yeah, K6 at, K5 at MB and K4 at Clark Wilkins. Or K5 at, K4 Clark Wilkins, 5th grade at AMS.
Okay. And then the 6th and 8th math pilot, are the 6th graders in Mount Vernon part of that as well?
Yep, so we are going to be making a collective decision on what programs to use at 6th grade. What you're gonna see is, you're gonna see a K5 program, you're gonna see a 6th grade program, and then you're gonna see a 7th and 8th. Just because MV is, you know, a sixth grade there. And so you'll see some conversation about that as we move forward.
Okay, so that's good, that all the students in the SAU 930 are having the same curriculum and they're going to the same pilots with it, though it may be a different.
Yes, sir.
I'll just leave it there. Bring some feedback into the strategic planning stuff.
Please do.
We'll have it.
Pete?
Just real quick, I'm curious with, and I don't know what the state laws of license for bus driver. I know you need a bus driver license.
Yep.
But I don't know whether, like, if you're driving just a bus van, whether you still need a bus license or not.
So for a bus, you need a CDL, whether it's a short bus or a long bus, you know, and then for vans, that's a different type of, like the white vans we have, that's a different type of.
My question is, are they struggling like we do in our industry, getting CDLA drivers?
They do.
is Incredibly hard, but we've gone back to Class B is a lot of places because you can get somebody to drive a Class B a lot easier. So
Let me look into, you know, because I said it real confidently about the smaller bus, because that's how I remember, 'cause I had a CDL once,
Not big.
right? And so I gotta see what size their small buses are, and
So,
so,
I mean, they
I'll
may
look
need
into
to
that.
go to more vehicles on the road, but they have a bigger pool of potential drivers.
yeah, no,
That don't need to go get a special certification. So,
I'll look into
not the
that.
best answer, but
And then one thing I wanted to highlight in there, in the superintendent report, we met this week as building administrators and some central office people about mindful technology. You were going to hear us have a conversation around technology in SAU 39 and how we use it. That is from projectors to screens to one-to-one devices to cell phones. We really think that we want to spend some time looking into finding a meaningful and helpful way how we are going to interact with technology to enhance student learning. And we think there's some work to be done here. We think school districts and schools that can figure this out really impact the learning cycle of their students and really impact the social development of their students. We're taking it very seriously. It's very exciting. We spent the fall sending people to different webinars, doing different research. And then we all came together with all our resources and information. I designed an agenda. Really, Kristen Gothier and Dana Curran are partnering pretty well with me on this because it affects their schools a little more heavily. And we're looking to, over the course of this spring, start to partner with families and students and staff onto addressing and making sure people recognize that this is a substantial issue. It's not just going to be about phones. It's about one-to-one devices. It's about the practices teachers use in their classrooms. And I think if there's something that I'm doing right now that can impact learning, it's this work right here. And we're making time for it. But as you know, with the superintendent's report, there's a lot of things happening, and I'm grateful for the people that were taking the leads with me on this, and Kristen and Dana and all the other administrators that joined, and more to come on that. We just had our first meeting, but we're excited about it. Brian was there. Pretty exciting, pretty good stuff. So yeah, that's where we're at. More to come on that. John?
The goal 6, I have 2 questions about that. Could you speak a little bit about this new partnership with the Lions Club? What's that looking like and what is that?
Yeah, I'm not heavily involved with that. Steve organized that with Clark Wilkins, and there was eye test.
It's typically where they come in and do vision screenings and then they're able to help buy glasses for kids that need it. It's a great way to catch a lot of kids that don't actually either have eye doctors or don't get screened frequently. So it can be a big barrier to learning. So the Lions Club, that's one of their big initiatives they do around the US and around the world. And it just provides a huge resource for kids to help assist learning.
Great, thanks.
And one more?
Yes, what is it? Could you put a little flavor around supporting neighboring school districts who are in facility trouble?
Yeah, so if anyone heard about Estelo's Stadium, was shut down in Nashua for the fall. And so that means Nashua South, Nashua North, and BG, we're looking for fields and places to play. And so Kelly Braley did a really nice job of shifting our schedules in a reasonable manner to accommodate games here. One of the things that we focused on is we really wanted kids to have senior nights under the lights. And, you know, it's a culmination of 4 years. So we hosted field hockey, soccer, football, senior nights for other schools here. This weekend, we're hosting the Division III State Football Championship. It's not connected to that, but it's just an NHIA thing. But so very grateful for that.
Thanks.
George, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Just a real quick question. You may want to circle back with whoever the contact is for the medical insurance. And what I suspect some of the rates that you're seeing is your probably medical loss ratios are probably at 100 or higher. And what those represent are that the premiums they're collecting, they're not fully covering what they're paying out in terms of prescriptions and claims. That's what I suspect is going on. And it's probably been trending high for quite some time. May not be at 100. You could be in the high 90s, like 95, 96. And if you've been at those levels for a couple of years, that's probably the reasoning why you're seeing these increases. So it's not necessarily you're having like these one big claims, because typically the insurance companies throw those out. Those are typically above the pooling points. What I suspect is you're getting a lot of high usage rates, which is driving the loss ratios up. That's what I would ask him. Outside of that, you're really limited in what you can do. It's going to be a challenge, but that's what I suspect is going on.
Hey, George, can I ask you to do me a favor? Can you put that in a question form and email it to me? I took some notes real quick. I just want to make sure I capture it the right way.
Sure, I'll shoot one over.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Shannon?
Yep. Thanks for the update, Mike. I really appreciate it. Just kind of wanted to piggyback a little bit for a second on Anna's comment earlier regarding bus behavior. I fully support the monitors on the bus. Bus behavior is addressed in our student handbooks, and we do actually have a policy, JICC, that provides for that, that the bus driver and a bus monitor, if applicable, so a monitor is noted in that policy, is responsible for the orderly conduct, and that they have the support of the board in maintaining good conduct on the bus. So thank you for that.
Thanks. Any other questions for me? Thank you, everybody.
Yes, okay. Well, we have arrived at public input 2 of 2. There's no one in the room. Is there anyone online with a question, comment, concern? All right, then.
Before we
Is-
adjourn, could I just make a question, a tech logistics question about simply? It's to understand whether or not we can get notices when the new information is presented, because I looked at it when it came out a week ago, and it wasn't really populated with a whole lot.
Yeah.
And then I checked it today, and all of a sudden there was all this substantive material in there. I don't know when that new stuff came in. But if it had come in 3 days ago, I would have had more of an opportunity to read it 3 days ago and then digest it, because it was a lot, I thought, especially the long.
Yeah, no, so we're 2 points to that. I have it on my notes to look into already.
Okay,
It
great.
came up in another meeting. Greg asked a similar
I talked to
question.
Chelsea about it, and we talked, and she said that she's sending out emails when she loads stuff, but that's not always the case on all these smaller items, John's point, so we need to automate it.
Yeah, so we'll look into that, but for me, we want to give you as much information as we can, and I say this, we work at a very incredibly fast pace. And so the health trust letter went out 2 days ago on the 19th. We had the mindful technology meeting yesterday. And so I want to give you guys, it's a month before we sit down together, and we'll continue to work at that. But I think I'll work with Chelsea. I'll have a more formal statement on what we can do. But for me, you know, the aspect of assembly that I like, it can give us the ability to post the agenda as much as we have a week out before, and then during my report, as I do the work for over the week, I'll have the ability to add some stuff because we are moving and we are nimble and we have 3 other boards besides this one to prepare for, so it is, you know, to get everything organized, it's just a process, and so we'll take a look at that. I'll work with Chelsea, and if we can't automate it, maybe there's some things we can do to know people. So I'll look into it. Thank you.
And one more housekeeping update, is that, Katie's going to be doing a newsletter for the SAU for December, and she's going to reach out, if she hasn't already, to each of the board chairs for a little something to put in on your behalf. Looking at our goals of having better communication with the community.
And the theme of that is gonna be, it's literacy and math. Theme of that newsletter. Looking for the second week of December for that to come out.
And then I think there's no need for non-public too. So I think we will take a motion to adjourn since we have people at home. And a second,
Did you open it for public comment or no?
we did.
Okay.
We had a couple questions. Okay, so, I'm sorry, who moved? Dan moved and Stephanie seconded. Shannon? We have a motion to adjourn.
Gascoigne, yes.
Gordon,
Over, yes.
Echo, yes.
Yes.
Hey, yes.
Peters, yes.
Roger, yes.
Yeah.
That's it.